Hello, 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 and welcome. Fresh coat of paint. Welcome on in to the Run It Down. I'm Brackish Brit, and somewhere, hopefully with microphones functioning, we've got Harold, we've got Zathdos, and we've got things to say about League of Legends. How we doing, boys?
Good. What about you, Harold?
Doing good, you know, just taking it slow finally, a few days when I can, so good vibes.
Totally wasn't working 2 hours ago. It's fine. There's too much to talk about right now. We've got First Stand, which, big spoilers, is where we're focusing this first one at least.
Surprising, you know. There's an international League of Legends event, and we're focusing on that in a League of Legends-based content piece. Amazing.
Who would ever have foreseen this? Okay, we could go in circles forever, but what's the initial take on the tournament before we get into the specifics? I know there's been a lot of conjecture around the way the graphics work. A lot of movement.
It's a bit ugly, honestly. It's absolutely hideous. You know when you play a mobile game? That's exactly what I'm seeing on my screen whenever I'm watching League of Legends Master.
I'm going to do the devil's advocate thing because I like doing that and it's my show. I like that they're trying something different. I don't think it hit this time, but I can absolutely respect that they at least tried it. As you say, I do quite rightly agree that it's just too much, but if we say the same forever, then nothing cool and different happens.
It's hard, right? Because you always want the creativity to be slightly different with RunItDown, or at least the things here absolutely change. But with The Last Stand, when you're at the top of the top, you have the best people, and it's a bit like Jaguar when they tried to change their car brand. It's just a bit ugly. Like, there's no real need for it to change. I understand you want to make it slightly cooler. I just think it's a little bit too much there.
I mean, I think the idea behind it is fine.
That's a deep cut, by the way. Like, hopefully people know what you're talking about on that one.
The Jaguar font rebrand that happened a year ago or so.
It's not good.
The Yassified Jaguar.
Weirdly enough, it actually might work out for them, only because when you go for something that's so out there, sure, they lose out on a lot of their people, but when they're going for electric cars, they're so stand out that people are like, oh, it's Jaguar. Like, even me bringing it up is good publicity for them. So maybe it would be League. The problem is, it's not like it's that different. It's just mobile game-esque.
No, I think the idea behind it is okay. It's not great because you're condensing a bit too much information on the bottom bar. Because you're trying to fit everything in there.
Have you guys seen the clip of Casual just getting procedurally more mad as he's constantly having to move his camera around? Because he's always on top of some form of information. And yeah, that's the thing. I think information is, at the same time, too dispersed, but also some bits are too focused, like in that bottom section, that it's constantly rotating through things rather than just being able to see all that information. But before Zap goes on another Jaguar-based tangent, I do, as with 3 Europeans, like, is it 07 for the LEC? Are we just like the worst region now?
I don't want to say
the Circle of Sucked says that we are potentially the worst region right now. We have lost to the LTA. We have lost to the PCS.
I mean, the law. There's a lot of words that have been used to describe KC's current form. I feel like they came into this tournament with an idea on how to execute their way of playing, which is progressively being more about get resources into Kana, win through topside.
That's what they've been trying to do. The problem is that Kalista and Targamas have been bleeding out bot side a lot.
And it's also about the fact that they've also run into some of the best neutralizer top laners in the world in their first 2 games. You play against Impact. Impact will not lose lane.
But that's implying it's going to get any better when you're going up against Zeus.
I mean, yeah, maybe you can hands check him, flip the lane.
Maybe, but I don't think that's what Kana wins on paper, at least. But I think before we went live, you made an interesting point of, I think that, well, my point at least, before I'll throw you to your one, Harold, is I think people put a lot of expectations on KC going in. Remember, this is Vladdy and Kalist's first international tournament. There is a lot of pressure that comes with that. And this kind of dovetails with your point, Harold, of do they actually have the right support for it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that, so, full disclosure, big G2 fan, been to many events, been to many a times, been the screaming part of the crowd. No point in hiding it. One of the things that also, really makes me like a G2 from a more personal standpoint, as I have some experience in the field, is seeing the amount of work they put in to support their players beyond the game. The amount of staff, the amount of the amount of resources and control, and well, basically just having all of this structured system around making your player's life good before thinking about what happens in the game. And I feel like KC right now kind of just went all in for, we just want performance. We'll pay the price later, but the taxman's come to collect already.
I'm about to say, now is later.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you can't say that. You're saying, oh, the taxman's here. They're clearly here for performance, and that's it. Sure, you can say they brought Kana because they want performance now. Sure, they brought Yike because he was part of G2. But Targamas, did you really buy him for performance? He is somebody probably a lot cheaper than what you've been able to buy before. He was on KC Blue beforehand. Kalist, yeah, sure, they're going to be strong now, but would you want somebody like Upset, Hans Sama, people who've been to these international tournaments? So and that's the big point you guys are missing.
Kalist is the investment, because he has been franchise KC in the ERL ecosystem because he was too young to play in LEC. Now he is in LEC, I think. And remember, this kid's 18. He has got so much space to grow. We can't expect him to be an international superstar his first year at the top flight. He has done well in Europe. I am not surprised that he is getting a bit checked by some of the more experienced laners out there in the rest of the world.
Counterpoint, enemy laner today was Doggo.
Hey.
He has dog in the name. What are you meant to say to that?
Doggo has actually, I know you're being facetious, but Doggo has been around for a long while.
Doggo's been around for a long while, but he's also been the singular cause of the demise of the entire teams in splits of past yesteryears. Yeah. Ultra Prime 2024 will remember.
Yeah.
I feel like, yes, a lot of expectations were thrown on this KC roster. Yes, a lot of good, consistent elements that have shown that they have the ability to win and win consistently and perform at a high level have been brought in. There's Kana and there's Yike, who are players. Yike has 4 international tournaments under his belt. This is his 5th.
Yeah. He was one of the ones, alongside Kana, of course, that I really expected to come in and be one of the guidelights for this team. And he kind of hasn't been thus far.
Kana is a bit more of a dark horse internationally. He has only ever been to one or two international tournaments, and one of them, yes, he had a deep run to semis, Game 5. We remember 2021 T1. Bit of more of a dark horse internationally. Consistency levels haven't been at the same point that they have been in the past. I feel like also the meta has been shifting a lot away from his premier picks. The Jace, the Gnar. They're good picks. They're not the meta right now.
Yeah, but remember, he was with T1, right? So when you go with T1, you get to the semi-finals. Kind of to be expected with a rust like that. Faker, of course, was the mid lane. The big thing that you talked about with Yike as well is with the caveat of G2 supported their players. 100% we saw that, but he's on KC now. He doesn't have that support system. He was always supported by the people like Caps in towards the mid lane. You also had a pro top laners, really good AD carry support. When you have Mickey X supporting you in the jungle, no offense, a lot of junglers can't go wrong when you have that sort of level. And now that he's been left on his own to mostly support himself, having to help Targamas come up to that level, same as well with Kana, who, yes, he was on T1, but a top laner can't support the rest of the team. When you have 2 rookies of Vladdy and Kalist, both in the mid and AD carry role, it kind of makes sense that KC are struggling in this sort of meta. When CFO, we talked about Jinjo, their jungler, I don't even know how many times he has been to international tournaments. It's over 10 because he's been on PSG Talon. So when you think about it that way, sure, KC on paper should be the better team, but they don't have the experience, and even the organization for less than a year have won themselves in the LEC. It still took them a year, so it might take themselves a year after to get themselves ready for a Worlds tournament.
The thing with Junjie, which before the series today was quite interesting, is that Yike, or more to the point G2, had been his kryptonite. Like, he'd not beaten G2 at a competitive event. And today, he got that little bit of revenge taking out Yike. But yeah, Yike without G2, as you say, is quite a different player. And he got the triumph of beating G2. But that's why my mind goes to slightly questioning what level the LEC is at internationally now. And since I'm talking about the LEC now, we could perhaps pivot into some very interesting news that we heard from elsewhere in the LEC, that Hilly is getting replaced on Vitality by Niski.
I'm so depressed. I don't even get me started. Hillasang, I love you, and it hurts. It hurts because he's my favorite support.
We watched him for so okay. Zach, the thing is, we watched him for so long, right? He was the professor. He was the mad genius, like 2018, 2019 Fnatic, where he was flippy, but he had a coin that came up head 70% of the time. As time's gone, that coin seems to be losing its magic. Like, even the 50-50s are starting to look more like 40-60s. And like, he may be a very intelligent player, as so many different coaches have said on like Euphoria and stuff like that. Shout out those guys. But if you're a really smart player, but you can't communicate that effectively so your team can make use of it. Like, if you say, like, someone steps out of fog of war for a fraction of a second, you say they're griefing and go in, what's your team going to do with that? Like, what have they got to actually work with? And so, I'm with you. I love Hillasang, especially, like, I was on my Fnatic era. We'll get to another Fnatic era player perhaps later. But he's been more off than on recently, unfortunately. And
it's been his whole career. Brackish, I'm being honest. I've been behind the scenes. I've looked at Hillasang's stats. He has been part of the top 3 team. I do love my numbers. Top 3 team only 3 times in his life on Fnatic. He did win on Mad Lions, which you guys need to give him massive props for. I get Hillasang isn't having a good time, but there's only 6 players in LEC history that have actually won on 2 different teams. And then 2 of them have been recent with Targamas, of course. And then, of course, with Yike coming from G2, both of them winning with KC as well. Hillasang, I don't think that he's ready to stay here in the LEC. I think that either he needs to take a break, take some time off and refine himself, or more importantly, I think if Hillasang turned into a coach, he could be absolutely phenomenal. And I hate to say it because I would love to see him stay in the LEC. I just don't think he's good enough anymore.
The question is then, Nesquik, like, role swapping and joining Vitality. Like, I think, is this actually an upgrade? Like, we've had players come from other roles, go to support, and suddenly start popping off. Like, Reckless is a world champion.
World champion is stretching it a little.
Yeah, he's not a world champion.
He is part of the supporting roster that made E1 world champions in 2024.
It's participation trophy, right?
Yeah, basically, in that participation medal. But, you know, I think Niski is one of those players that I will always look at as the biggest what-ifs in European history. Because, to me, he's one of those players that, like, if only he had like 1% more luck. Remember, like 2021 Fnatic summer when they brought in Adam from the LFL.
Yeah.
He together with Whipple, they were very much the linchpin of the team. He was playmaking. He was fighting the win. He was basically micromanaging the entire team. A team that had firepower in every single lane. They had a really star-studded roster, except for Adam. But my gripe with French top laners remains. I do think Niski brings a lot of control to the support position. He definitely doesn't have that instilled aggression that Hillasang had. You know, kind of been his trademark his entire career. he does bring a lot of coordination and a pre-existing idea on how to manage a jungler in game, being a mid laner and all. He's probably gonna shift this Vitality roster into a more controlled idea of playing.
That's
but
kind of what I think.
It remains to be seen whether mechanics will have an impact, or he will just stick to simple champions and just use the downtime. Basically, no brain, all brain, no mechanics.
That's
just
kind of fine for me, right, though, because Nisqy, when I think of this player, yes, he's a playmaker, but not necessarily by, like, turbo out-handsing his opponents. He does think quite intelligently about the game, and I think that can slot in quite well to a support. And he can kind of, as he gains comfort in this new role, he can potentially branch out into some more expressive picks.
Yeah, 100%. I know I know Nisqy the best for his Twisted Fate. Something that he's been able to roam around the map, do a ton of stuff, but Vitality have been in the gutters for so long, they've barely been able to make playoffs. I don't think one player like Nisqy can completely turn the season around, especially when he is brand new. I wish maybe they gave an opportunity to one of the EMEA Master Team support, gave somebody new towards the scene, as yes, Nisqy, he has had those opportunities in mid lane, he wants to try support. But at his level, I think you just try and go for someone new.
Well, of course, spring will tell us what happens with that. I know you're looking forward to being in Berlin for week 1, so maybe we'll have you report back on that one if you're if you're around.
Give you the hot news right off the press or right off the keyboard.
LEC news aside, though, let's throw it back to First Stand, and I want to cherry pick a little bit what was discussed about T1. Kana, ex-T1 player, perhaps not being all as star-studded, having come off that team. But another player who is looking fantastic, not on T1, is Zeus. Moves to Hanwha Life, beats T1, takes Spring, and now has come to First Stand. They 2-0 Top Esports yesterday. And of course, they didn't play today, but they are ready, raring, and waiting, I think, for their next opponent. Is leaving T1 perhaps, like, potentially the best choice of his career? Like, striking out as Zeus rather than, oh, he's on T1, so he's good?
Well, he's always going to be immortalized as one of the greatest top laners in League of Legends history. Winning back-to-back world titles, doing it playing his style both times. Because, let's say it, Zeus never really stuck to the meta. Except when it was that the weird Aatrox meta in 2022.
Unless the meta fits him, yeah.
Exactly, which is very much a style I enjoy. I feel like having individuality is absolutely excellent. Having your identity be shown is something I dearly miss and wish to see more in competitive leagues where you're a player that you're confident on something. Like, this is one of the reasons I really like Broken Blade. He's not afraid to go for his pick, what he thinks is good in the matchup.
Fearless Draft as well has been a big part of letting a lot of these players express themselves, right? This is why so many people, I've seen such a sentiment that after the spring with all of these Fearless Drafts, like, let's just keep it rolling. Let's just go full Fearless.
Yeah, it gives everybody just a chance to really express themselves. But one thing I quickly want to come back to with Zeus is I think he was the major linchpin for T1 to win that grand finals, as he was able to find these by himself. But more importantly, I think that if you ever stay on T1, you can't build the legacy that you could without T1. Because every single time when people talk about legacy, they'll always say, oh, but you had Faker in the mid lane. You had carry on support. You're clearly going to win everything, right?
That's what I was getting at.
But if you're able to win on HLE with none of your players from T1, and you're able to beat all of them, even if it is only in last stand, you're going to be very happy with yourself. So for Zeus to build up his legacy, I think it was the right choice.
And it's not like it's not a star-studded roster on HLE either.
No, I was going to say, let's be real. Any roster Korea sends to an international is going to be star-studded at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Korea is just kind of objectively the best region at the moment. I think.
Did you know
I would love to I'd love to hear some of the LPL folks like Nymera argue for their region. But we also saw what Hanwha Life did to top esports yesterday. And even today against Team Liquid, Jackie Love in the first game was found out. His Ash got caught so many times in the first 15-20 minutes.
And for top esports to be one of the teams that weren't the biggest enjoyers of lane swaps, and now lane swaps are gone and they get back to playing their 2v2s, being, back in these lanes, being able to just play the actual matchup that you draft for, and then you drop, you kind of just whimper out against HLE, and
They did 2 OTL, really, but
they looked really bad, though.
Exactly. They actually had to work against Team Liquid, which, history says that against LTA, any Eastern team should just waltz over them, which we'll throw across to a slightly separate point. Team Liquid, LTA as a whole, the combination of the Americas into one region seems to have really galvanized something. Either that or I've just not been watching enough NA.
Okay, we have to be honest here. LTA North is so much better than LTA South. It's not even close at this point. Whenever they get themselves in towards the finals, semi-finals, any of the playoff brackets, LTA North absolutely just stop them. So even though that we've added both the regions together, it seriously hasn't made a difference in my head.
However, is that, like Harold said, basically sort of a behind-the-scenes thing? I don't know, obviously, what the behind-the-scenes stats are like for the North and South teams, respectively. But, when you have a name as big as Team Liquid, who have money from, Honda behind them, you kind of have... That support network is almost guaranteed to exist. And that's why...
Bracket, I'm going to give you a few names for teams, okay?
Yep.
So, one of them's going to be LTA North, one's going to be LTA South. Or one of the regions, we have Furia, Leviathan, Loud, Pain Gaming, Red Candidates. That's half of the teams, right? Now I'm going to give you the other side. FlyQuest, 100 Thieves, Team Liquid, Dignitas, maybe not that one, Cloud9. There's a big difference between these names. LTA North are clearly with the better rosters, with more money behind them. And to be honest, most people watch LTA North and not really LTA South, except for Loud.
Yeah, it's kind of the point of, the LTA North is the LCS. They already had the pre-existing infrastructure behind them. It is the first year, and it's kind of hard to just think about, to ever think that there is going to be a possibility where the LTA South is ever going to be present at internationals. I would expect both spring and summer top 3, top 4 to be a combination of FlyQuest, TL, T9, and 100 Thieves. So it is, growing pains from a certain point of view. First year of this combination, teams are trying. I feel like the gap is going to close eventually. It's just a question of, if it takes too long, will it just kill the region?
Yeah, the thing is quite similar, right, with the PCS. We've got Flying Oyster, we have Talon, not PSG anymore. They kind of sit above, and then we've got the Oceanic teams, and we've got the Japanese teams,
and the Vietnamese teams,
also. And we see CFO here. Talon were far and away the favourites of that region. And, of course, you still have people like Gam in Vietnam that I think, when they have a good run, can contest. But these, particularly Oceanic and LJL, I think adapting and to the point where they can put a roster forwards that actually challenges at that level is going to be tough. And that sucks because, Wukawonka SoftBank Hawks, love that team. My boy Ebby, love that team, but watching PCS, it's clear that a couple of these regions have a ways to go before they are able to sort of dance with the others.
Okay, sure. Now why? There's a very clear answer to why these teams are not able to compete with China, with Korea. It is because China and Korea, mostly China, just steal away the best players from Taiwan and all these different reasons. If you guys remember Kaza, Maple, who's retired now, and even Junja, who plays on, of course, the team. What's the team at the region today?
Flying Oyster.
Yeah, CF Flying Oyster. Anyway, plays for that team, and guess what? All of them at their primes were stolen away. Top esports still here. Junja used to play for them back into the day, so they are never going to be able to reach the top level because all of their best players just get nicked by China because you get better pay, you have a higher chance of winning worlds, and everything you would want except for maybe the comforts of your home country, they have.
Also, you get more exposure later on, more rosters get to see your possible potential. You know, there's more publicity around. Well, as of late, maybe there used to be more publicity around the LPL than there used to be around the LCP, than there is around the LCP. So, as of late,
but it's that why CFO had a decent chance against Carmine Corp. Carmine Corp, we talked about how 2 of the players should have the experience to stay there, while CFO, a lot of their players have gone internationally a ton of times.
Tenured.
And on top of that,
very tenured.
They've also been to China, a lot of them played in the LPL, got themselves towards some of those semi-finals, finals, and then come back when they're not retiring, but they're not at the level they used to be.
Counterpoint, CFO's mid laner Hong Q is a rookie and is 17 years old.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, you have Vladdy who's 19 against a 17-year-old, so 2 years difference, both kind of in the same ballpark.
I don't know. I feel like it is hard to pinpoint the blame for Europe's failures. There's a lot of underlying issues that we, of course, don't really have access to. We don't really have.
Yeah.
None of us have insider access to this information without ruining our careers, at least. But I do think the fact that your best performing players were your 2 rookies for Carmine Corp is both. I feel like it's a blessing and a curse, because having Kalista and Vladdy perform not great, but well, they performed. They stood up. They made their names known. They, of course, against the Liquid in game 2, excellent game from the duo, the top jungle duo of KC, but also Vladdy on the Azir being this really oppressive presence. But kind of feels like right now, is he as an Azir one trick?
I mean,
it's a bit of a one-dimensional
that game that
player.
they won yesterday definitely made it look like he was very, very happy on that champion. And on the other side, APA continues to be a bit of a 3-trick.
I mean, when you have a mustache man playing Ziggs and you're losing towards it, something is going wrong. I don't know. I feel like LEC should be doing a bit better. Like, one of my North American friends keeps telling me you're a 1-player region. If you didn't have the semi-bold mid laner caps, you guys wouldn't be able to win. And honestly, I'm trying to think back and be like, oh, but we've got this up-and-coming talent, Kalist. Except for that, what real new talents do we have coming in except for the players on Carmine Corp?
It's true. A lot of LEC teams do. I feel like there needs to be a sort of change in the region, because a lot of teams, as you were saying when we talked about Niski, that a lot of teams sort of hedge on players that they view as tried and tested. But you also sort of know what you're getting with those. And so,
very much known quantities.
Yeah.
Guys, the dream is promotion and relegation. It's always the thing I want in League of Legends. I want to have it here. I understand it's bad for the professionals and the people who are actually paying money towards the teams, but how great would it be where if your team was clearly not good enough because you're hedging your bets, you're just going 9th and 10th every season, you can't do that anymore. So then people would have to build, would have to have better rosters, and at that point, maybe we could compete with Korea and China, and to be honest, at this point, even NA.
That's kind of been the eternal problem with franchising, right? That, some teams can just kind of lowball. But
it allows for better growth of the better teams that want to put in the money because they have the financial security of having a franchisee spot. At the same time, a team that has acquired a franchise spot 6 years ago for You know, like 2 million, 1 million euros, 500,000 euros. And I was just sitting on it because they're hedging their bets and like, we can sell the spot for 50 million next year, maybe, if our region does well internationally.
Yeah, maybe not anymore. I feel like there was a 2022 where that was really a big thing.
I mean, when KC bought the slot from Astralis for 25 mil.
I mean, I know that a certain team in a certain ERL region has said they want to get into LEC.
Yeah,
who knows if the Rats will be allowed to. We'll get onto that later.
Yeah, we'll get onto the European, European part of the stuff.
Actually, interesting question. How would CFO do in Europe?
The question I have,
sorry, go ahead.
We were talking about Honky, right? New player. I think that it'd be very interesting to see a player like that go up against established names like your Caps, your Humanoids. I don't know if he would beat them.
You make a very good point, Brack. CFO couldn't do anything in Europe because Honk, you can't play in Europe.
Okay.
On the hypotheticals, Harold.
That's not okay. On the hypotheticals, because I was going to ask how, Team Liquid would do over in Europe, but at this point, Harold, they can't even play there, can they? Weirdly enough, they could play in Korea with the amount of players they have on their roster.
Yeah, Core JJ and Impact make up enough of the roster.
Yeah, they're fine. They've had such a great core, and I think that's the reason Team Liquid have done so well in international tournaments. Sure, they haven't been able to amazingly beat China, beat Korea. They have taken them to a Game 5, though. And the reason I think they did that was just because of their core foundation of Core JJ and Impact. The question is, are they going to be able to get themselves more than that? I don't think so. But I don't think there's anyone else they could replace in North America to have a better chance.
I don't know. I do think Team Liquid is the most European team out of the LTA.
How?
That's going to need some expounding.
Okay. I know everybody's looking at FlyQuest and, Bwipo-inspired combo. But I do think the way that Team Liquid play is molded around what G2 have done internationally for so long. It is playing around a certain way of drafting, and it is consistently trying to draft the same composition or the same idea behind the composition, and then just keeping it simple, executing around that same idea. They want wave clear mid. They want a weak side top laner that can absorb pressure and show up to the fights. They want a proactive jungler that can make things happen on the map, and then they're gonna draft an aggressive bot lane every time. This is very much something that G2 did in the past. They drafted around the top side. They drafted a strong mid laner for Caps where he could have kill pressure and rotation pressure. They drafted the strong solo laner for Broken Blade, and then they drafted a jungler who could support that or exploit the push that the solo laners had, and then they drafted a self-sufficient bot lane for Hansama and Mickey.
Which is kind of exactly what we saw yesterday, right? Like, the thing that perhaps frustrated me the most about that KCTL series was Game 1. TL was setting traps that I wouldn't fall for in my platinum ranked games. And KC were just walking into them. I don't know if it was overconfidence, just like, we're better than them, but time and again, we're just pulling Yike in, and oh look, here's Yeon. Oh look, here's the TL bot lane. 2 or 3 of you dying. Yeah,
it has to be a level of nerves and the levels of Yike probably feels more pressured than he ever did in G2. When you're with a roster like KC with a ton of rookies, with Vladdy in mid lane and of course, Callista's your AD carry, you're going to have to be the person to find yourself a big lead. And if that means going in towards something that you think is a trap, of course, it's not the correct choice. At least you can start to understand why Yike is doing it a little bit more, because he's still a very young player, being a lot younger than a lot of the veterans, even on these other teams.
Yeah. And that pressure, I think, definitely compounds on an international stage. Like, you can sort of focus your energy, especially in that final, of course, 3-0ing, that Yike had this sort of revenge arc against G2. Okay, well, you got that. Now what?
It's the holiday arc, clearly.
the vacation arc. That is a deep cut.
My.
You know how everybody has their training arcs, then they have the huge entire fight in the animes, and then afterwards you have your lovely beach holiday. You know, you have to have a beach episode before you can get into fighting again. I feel like that's what Yike did. Yike had his huge battle against Shitu, absolutely dominated after practicing for so long, and afterwards he's like, oh, I'm okay now. But I'm joking. I am mostly joking. Yike could absolutely dominate me. Not in that way, but dominate me on the Rift.
Right, we'll not stick on that one too long, I think. We touched on it earlier. Fearless draft. We all clearly love it. We all clearly want it to stay. But
it's like variety is good for viewer retention.
The spice of life?
Okay,
how has it actually affected internationals?
Okay, there's one thing I want to quickly talk about before we talk about the actual internationals, because there's a really interesting spot about rookies and how it's affected them. Because think about it, right? You get to game 5, 40 different champions have been taken off the board. For your own lane, minimum 4 champions most likely been taken off. It can go up to maybe even 10. You have to go so far into your pocket, and you don't just have to play them at a decent level, you have to be a master at them to play at the highest level. And for these rookies, how are they ever meant to get in? They have 3, 4, maybe 5 champions they're very solid at the top level. But after that, it starts getting more difficult. And we talked about Carmine Corp with Vladdy in the mid lane. Is he a Zir main? Is that the only champion he can play? Well, clearly, he can't be anymore because of Fearless Draft. So for entertainment-wise, absolutely love it. But for rookies coming in, it's so difficult to try and break in towards that top level with Fearless Draft.
You might have muted yourself, Harold.
No, he is thinking so much about the ideas I'm putting out.
There we go. You know, we hear you. We hear you.
Oh my god.
Radio into Harold?
On my microphone decides that doesn't
decides no
anymore.
That's enough of you. Just no more talking for the rest of the episode. Carry on.
I don't think we can give that same leeway to most rookies in Europe anymore. Most rookies in Europe play, before getting to the LEC, play through the EMEA Masters grind. They go through it every year, twice a year, or 3 times a year. But you can't succeed at that level. If you succeed in the EMEA Masters, you are likely to see some kind of LEC purview at some point in the coming years. And I feel like it needs to be started. Maybe in the past it was less of a consideration of this guy is really good on 3 champions. We can still get him. He's going to be good on his 3 champions. If they ban all 3 away, we're going to get something else on the map. Now you're going to have to start looking at the players like, okay, what player is good and he also is flexible? Which is the player that has adapted faster to new metas, to new champions, picked up new ideas, changed up the way they play the game? It's not about picking up the best mechanical player anymore.
No.
I feel like it's about picking up...
The game has evolved so much past that.
It is about picking up the best player that fits your system and is willing to learn, that you can bring in and nurture and make it become a star player. Because, you may come out as a star player from the EMEA Master system, but if you're a star player that plays 3 champions, and you go into an LEC season with full Fearless and best of 3s and best of 5s, you're gonna kind of whimper out because somebody's gonna pick up on it. You're gonna get targeted out. You're gonna be something uncomfortable,
in this
and you're
day
gonna become
and
a liability.
There is a minimum level of prep that all teams do. Even the laziest of teams can go, oh look, this guy plays these champions. We can ban them. We can pick them away. So, yeah, the champion pool barrier to entry is so much higher with Fearless than it has been, and I think that's a good thing.
I definitely do agree. The only problem is with how young these players are, it's a lot to put on them. But if you are trying to go professional in League of Legends or anything else, you're going to have to be the best of the best and then better than them to get yourself towards the LEC. big possibilities for younger players. I definitely think they can do it. The only role that I disagree with not having to really worry about Fearless Draft has to be AD carries. But even then, it could be a bit difficult as
most carries can play the
becoming
entire
more
carry
popular.
roster.
Even Kallista's come super high in the meta. Even people are saying to me now that Ashe is so weak, it's not even a counter to Kallista anymore.
Is that Ashe being weak or Kallista being strong, though?
A bit of both, I think. I'm not sure if I agree with their points, but it's something that a
Ashe
lot of
is
professional
really strong
players
right
say. Now, there's a lot of people I've talked to behind the scenes who play competitively who have said, "Oh, do I need to ban Ashe? No, that champion's trash. Pick me Kallista."
Let's just say, I think pro players are possessed of strong opinions that aren't always correct.
The thing is, it's even happened in mostly Korea, I believe, or it might be the LPL, I'm not too sure, but they've actually still been picking Kallista first pick. Ashe is still available and nobody's picking it against it. I prefer a Varus, I prefer maybe a Jinx into it. Plenty of different options.
Let's remember historically how slow pros can be to adapt. And that's why I think Fearless has helped a lot in that respect. That you can't just pick your 3 meta carries or 3 or 4 meta carries and just go, okay, well, those 2 are banned, so it's the Kai'Sa Xayah matchup this game. Oh,
yeah, remember that period where we had like, oh, Tristana for the 15th game in a row.
I think Tristana's coming back.
Tristana's really good right now.
Yeah, I think Tristana can be played. I think Lucian Nami, definitely a possibility.
We saw it. Hell, it didn't work in lane for Yon and Core JJ, but it won the game.
European Lucian Nami, though?
Yeah, that's...
maybe not.
We've
maybe
seen how that went.
You can see it. Anyway, guys, I did want to get a little bit more spicy with the questions. Of course, we got ourselves the first.
We have a list.
I know it. Yeah, the question I wanted to get to was, who do you guys think is actually going to win it? Because we said a lot about each team slightly. But what team do you think is up top? Because for me, it has to be HLE. I don't think it's even close. I think first stand, HLE have clearly been the better team. Zeus looks like an absolute monster. And even with him, the star-studded roster of the full Korean team, I don't think anyone's coming close to him.
I mean, we saw them go up against Top Esports, and it did not look altogether very close. Now, I'm not going to say that Top Esports can't challenge them, but if they are going to do that, then they clearly need to do something different, because the way that they tried to play against HLE yesterday just wasn't it.
I think I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. I do think Top Esports is going to take it in the end. Top Esports have been a team that has been slow in the LPL, and then they ramped up, and then they swept everyone else that was considered a top contender. They went into finals not as the favorites.
Nope.
They 3-1 anyone's legend.
They also had, remember that they had to go through BLG,
NIP.
Yep.
They had to go through LNG, I believe. They had to go through JDG.
Yes, they went through the Forge, but the problem is when you go through the Forge, you're meant to come out tempered and strong. They looked brittle against Hanwha Life.
They did. Also, we need to remember where it is. First stand is in South Korea, the place where HLE plays. A lot more comfortable to get yourself situated.
Home field advantage, a little bit.
I mean, you have Top Esports. They clearly, go in China to Korea. They've been to many different internationals. They should be comfortable. But going to IG, NIP, BLG, JDG, and AL, and winning all of them, not in a perfect 3-0 series, but 3-1 and dropping their games. Maybe they would just drop in the first series, and then they're going to pick up all 3 afterwards and win it all. It's just part of the storyline.
Yeah, I mean, my thinking behind the Top Esports thing is they came into the tournament, new meta, new everything. They still went for more of like comfort. I think their drafts were relatively were good in both games. I think 369 having access to the Gragas is good. It is probably his best champion. He is known globally for his Gragas presence. I do think there needs to be a little bit of reassessing on what your priorities should be, especially if you're trying to draft around an aggressive top laner. I think the game 1 draft was kind of atrocious. Picking Ken and R5 into you already have Leona plus Aurora.
Part of me wonders that maybe the Hammer Life series was a bit of a calibration for top esports. It's like, yeah, we can lose to the Korean team, but they are still very much favored against the rest. Today was the one that sort of, if they had convincingly taken down Team Liquid, then I'd be higher on them. But they did actually have to work for it. And that means that I can't, in full faith, say that they'll do the full run again. Like, I need to see maybe one more series from each of these teams to fully formulate my opinion on that one.
Well, the thing is, now we're going to see a relative power level from both teams. They know they've already gone up head-to-head against each other. Now they both have, I believe they both have KC and the CFO to play.
Yeah. How will I have to play everyone but?
That is true. They also have
top
to play
esports.
So I think
we can compare how those teams do against each of the other teams. Kind of what I'm going for.
Yes, I do think stylistically, TL will have a better matchup into HLE because of Impact's ability to just neutralize the lane and try and slow down Zeus from taking over the game. I think
very interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. I think that Zeus not being able to find a lead is going to be a huge hamper to HLE if they can't make that work out. TL's a team where if they get towards late game, I get it, but I have belief that...
Are you going to tell me that APA is going to get any of his champions and then stand up to Cream?
Whatever you say.
Oh wait, no, not Cream. Hang on, this is top. That was top. Cream's top esports. Zeka, who's even worse. In fact, we saw APA get bodied by Cream for the most part in the series today.
I don't know. It's going to be a difficult one. Power rankings wise, for me, it has to go HLE, just beating everybody, and then top esports. But the game I'm most excited for, I think TL is still going to win it. I think TL CFO could be a lot closer than what people think. And the reason I believe that is CFO's a team with a ton of experienced players like we talked before about. But more importantly, they're a team that can get to the late game and have really good team fights. And if they're able to hold down TL in the early game, get towards late, maybe one team fight CFO can take a game. And if they're lucky and on their day, I truly believe that CFO could beat North America as well. And then at that point, if CFO's third, TL's fourth, and KC, no offense, they're in the trash for me.
Yeah, like in the press conference afterwards, Yike was like, nobody's going to give up. We're going to give it our all. But that doesn't necessarily actually instill the greatest deal of confidence when you lost to PCS and LTA. Unless they have the biggest glow up known to mankind and they 2-0 Hammer Life and top esports,
they don't even have Hans Armor. I was going to say, oh, they could have a glow up like him. There's not even G2 there.
So there's this very silly thing, which is even if KC win one series and their next two series are against the top esports and HLE, they take down one of the two juggernauts. And they go 1-3, it won't matter because they lost the head-to-head to both CFO and TL.
Yeah, they kind of have to win both to have any chance.
They have to win both,
and that's
a shot.
That's a big ask.
So, okay, if they do it, props to them. Go up, you made it work. You beat the two Eastern teams after they looked incredible. All right, fair play, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I think. I mean, let's hypotheticalize. Let's hypotheticalize, boys. Like, we have upcoming matches at First Strike. Obviously, today we've had First Strike. Damn, Zath, you've got me with this one. You've been calling it Last Stand. I call it First Stand.
First Strike, Last Stand, First Stand. All of them except for First Stand are League of Legends pseudonyms for something, right? For a different rune, different ability, any of that sort. And then they're like, okay, we're going to put something directly in the middle of it that you guys are going to have to learn. And to be honest, it's not even my fault. You said you got confused. Harold got confused. It's a bit of a mess.
I just don't like it.
So tomorrow we have two series. I want you to sell me on the less obvious result. Hanwha Life versus CFO.
Who do you want? Harold, do you want this one or do you want the next one?
I'll take it. Okay. I think if Flying Oysters keep playing the composed game they have been playing the entire tournament, we've seen one series from it, but they played this composed style, this simple style of play where they're looking to just neutralize the lanes as much as possible and then kind of just have this more, not direct, but aggressive way to look at skirmishes where they're gonna bring one extra member, they're gonna make it an uneven fight. I think there is a chance where HLE gets stunned by it and their laning prowess is not gonna be enough to just outduel the team fighting potential that CFO have been going towards with their drafting. I think if they ego it too much, if HLE ego it too much, CFO have a possibility to just take away a game and then just stun lock HLE.
Or just flashbang them.
Yeah, basically. Just
put them in the Graves W, get them in the darkness. Don't see anything.
Cheap flashbang.
2-0.
Yeah. CBTC flashbang out.
I actually think they could take a game. Like, I know you had to do that because Brack said it. I think CFO can take a game if they're prepared.
I was being genuine. What do you mean here?
Yeah, 100%. Brackish, what games do I have to be genuine about?
Carmine Corp versus Top Esports.
All right, guys. Let's breathe. Harold, can we swap?
It's too late. Okay. It's too late now, sir.
It's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, I may be English. There's no French in me, but I'm going to be French for just a second.
Quel connard.
Carmine Corp, the way they're going to win this, I'm going to tell you how they'll beat Top Esports. Yikes is going to go from yikes to actual yike again. Kalis is going to show us why he's the best AD carry known to man. Fladdy, somebody I've commentated beforehand, is going to absolutely pop off. And Kana is going to show T1 why he should be their main top laner. And if everything is perfect in this way, Top Esports are going to lose it in a 2-0 fashion.
I respect how emphatic you were about it. I am going to unravel one of those threads for a second, because Jackie Love has been caught so many times in the two series that we have seen him thus far. I actually think that if Yike lets Kana just sit topside, chill out, and you hard focus bot lane and put Jackie Love behind and put Kalista ahead, then there's actually an angle for it.
I didn't mention Targamas for a reason. He's a player that went to G2, one of the worst in the league. He went down to Carmine Corp Blue, won EMEA Masters. Really good job. He's come back up. He's looked decent. But he doesn't look great. There's a reason why he wasn't able to stay in the LEC after his stint with G2, the best team. There's a reason why he went down. And now at this international tournament, you're telling me, hey, get Yike and Targamas to play together around bot lane. I'm having trouble trying to see it work. Your silence speaks.
It does.
I think
they haven't. That's a good point. It's a good point, though. They haven't actually been linking together all that much.
No, because Targamas is not a proactive player. He needs somebody to order him around, and in that G2 2022 roster, all of that burden fell onto Jankos.
Which is kind of part of the reason that roster didn't work, right? Like, Jankos had to do too much.
Let's figure this out then. So, the reason that I don't think Carmine Corp are going to work in the long term is Targamas needs somebody to support him, to tell him what to do. With G2, he had Jankos, like everybody said. But Yike, who did Yike have on his team to support him? Maybe Caps in the mid lane, but most importantly, he had Mickey X on support. Both of these players had incredible people at support, and when we think about the best G2 roster ever, it was with Mickey X and of course Jankos in the jungle, and now both of these players don't have that support. They made it work in the LEC, but against these top teams, I don't think they're going to be allowed to play it how they're doing it.
Well, I mean, you know, we did just spend, the better part of 10 minutes trying to hype these matchups up. But anyone looks at those and goes, yeah, Handball Live top esports. And that is not an unreal, that is a realistic take to have.
There is one point we missed here.
Oh.
Yike was part of the G2 roster that 3-0 top esports at MSI.
He was.
Yeah.
So, I know technically top esports.
The Psychic Edge didn't really work, like Junjie just beat him.
I know technically, top esports changed jungler. They had this guy, I think, called Tarzan, who was really good. He got this other guy still, I think, from the LPL region. His name's Kanavi. Pretty good guy,
Yeah.
Pretty good player.
Carmine Corp, hear me out. They're gonna beat top esports by remaking the G2 roster, but dressing them up in the KC merch. You're never gonna know the difference. Bring G2 back.
We might have to look at the rulebook for that one, I think, Zach.
No, hear me out, guys. We do a tactical swap out. Carmine Corp, wonderful job. You did amazing. But now we're in internationals. Get G2 in there. They'll at least get us to a semi-finals.
Kana looks suspicious.
I would like to point out that at internationals, G2 hasn't gotten out of Swiss for the best part of how long?
Well, it's been
LEC hasn't got out of Swiss for how long?
Days where they haven't won, or somebody else has won the LEC that isn't them. So they have enough legacy. Do you want to know an interesting fact, guys? I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. Without G2, without BOG, without T1, and without Genji. And PSG Talon, because I like that.
But when was the last time that all of those teams weren't at an event?
Yeah.
Never.
2015?
Mm-hmm.
That's because G2 didn't exist?
Yeah. They,
No, but then to 2015, it was SKTT1.
I mean, Europe hasn't been good since 2019.
I would argue 2020 was still good.
Also,
okay,
I don't care. I'm going to quickly say this.
LEC peaked in 2019. Yeah, I can see that.
When was the last time Fnatic was good? What year?
2018.
2018. Nope, 2018. Do you know why? They haven't won anything since the bald man left.
Been bald like one split, and that's.
I was going to say, Caps is.
I love him.
Yes, it's a nice I keep running joke, but I mean there is a reason why Caps is lauded as the best European player of all time, pretty much,
and probably one of the best 5 players of all time in League of Legends history.
Yeah, and we look to First Stand, right, and we're lacking G2 here, but how many people are really looking towards MSI, Worlds, and expecting a world where G2 isn't there?
I think the big
top 2 making it.
Yeah, that is the difference. It's only the top 1 team instead of the top 2. It's just all of these regions have had always team that can contend for the title, but never really got to the top level. They've always been the 3rd or 4th seed, right, coming out their regions.
That's another thing with First Stand, right? Because this is a 3rd international happening very early in the year while teams are sort of still figuring themselves out.
Yeah.
And perhaps this, changing of the guard almost is sort of emblematic of that.
I mean, I do think changing of the guard, I think it's a bit of a early knee-jerk reaction.
It's a bit of a grandiose statement, yes.
Yeah, because G2, again, there's been rumors that they're going to probably make changes going into spring. Likely Labrov isn't staying. They're going to pick up Stand from Team Heretics.
Which is
an idea. Not quite sure how it's going to work out. You're bringing in somebody that was a rookie, that is in his rookie C split in the LEC, and partnering him up with Hans Sama, who is, how do I put this nicely? Very meteoric. No, not meteoric, mercurial.
Yeah.
He very much depends on the person
conditions
that he's
around
playing
him.
with. Exactly. Yeah. And they had this partnership with Mickey, probably got a bit run down by the end of year 2. As most teams, when you play together for 2+ years, some things either you have a perfect relationship, but there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. But relations tend to sour. There's some things that get built up over time. But good support structure. Most issues were ironed out on that G2 roster, but sometimes people just want change as well. They want a different perspective, want to do something different.
I think, as a Fnatic fan, if I can't have Hilasang and you give me Mickey X, I'm as happy as ever. If I get to see that Pyke flash over the wall, find a double stun and a double ultimate, we're eating good as a Fnatic fan.
Where did it go wrong? Because they had upset Mickey.
What, for Fnatic?
Yeah.
Honestly, when Vladdy comes in as a rookie and is better than Humanoid, I think there's your answer. I think Humanoid is somebody who I don't think should be on Fnatic anymore. I think he should have been changed last season. I understand that he is sure one of the top 3 or 4 best, but I think there are better options out there for the rookie players. I think Razork and Mickey X are 100% always going to stay. I think Upset, solid AD carry. I think there's no issue with him. And Oscar Inin has actually started to blossom into one of the top contending top laners as well.
Oscar had a little bit of a rough split this one, but I don't necessarily begrudge him for it, I think.
There's a lot of changes. You have grabs behind the scenes. It's always been the coaching staff mostly for Fnatic to find.
All the grabs memes are fantastic, though. Shout out grabs. Much love. I like the... He almost feels like he is... If a draft goes wrong, he's willing to step in and just be like, yeah, that was on me, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's I'm the issue.
There's a punching bag available for the entire team. Whenever something goes wrong, just...
I mean, that's kind of what is... Do we remember the G2, it was a grabs draft? That was a thing for years while he was there.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I don't think Grabs is a little bit disrespected for the work he did for Europe.
Not to sell him short. I should say, let me put that there. Not to sell Grabs short. I think he is a fantastic coach, and the memes perhaps did get overblown. But that is almost kind of in the nature of a fandom to do.
Well, it's hard for people to really know who coaches are, so even though it's bad publicity in the long run, I still think it was pretty good to be able to know who he was. Because what other coaches do you know? I know the Mad Lions coach back in the day. I'm not sure what team he is with now. I think it's Vitality. We also have, of course, who used to do it for Fnatic?
The
it was Nightshare.
Yeah, Yamato. Cannon.
I'm just talking about the major people that people know. You had Young Buck at one point.
How many people know them majorly outside of the really tight-knit league?
Really, coaches don't tend to put themselves on the line like that. I mean,
let's be real. If you're looking for league coaches, the only name that leaps to mind for me, and I think to the front of the mind for, and it still needs to be kind of habitual esports watchers, it's Coma.
You know
Coma,
what?
Yamato.
Even if it's not correct, you can actually say Kadril.
Yeah.
That will come to the people's minds. Even if he isn't the inherent coach that people want or wouldn't work in the LEC, he is still inherently the coach for Los Ratones, and he is very famous, so he kind of ticks both boxes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why Yamato is so well known, I think. But, I mean, with LR being mentioned, I think we'll try and close things back into first stand. Are there any more thoughts that you guys have? Or is that sort of our should we go a little less worldwide in a few moments?
Yeah, I think just one last thing. Now that we talked KC enough, they're going to go on and win the entire thing.
I mean,
they did that in my comment
Blue
section.
Wall,
My last
prove
video.
us wrong. Show your support. We know KC has one of the most die-hard fan bases out there. And it's important that, of course, the KC fans stick with them, especially in a moment that's tough like this. Because some fan bases are quite mercurial, and one bad performance leads to calls for, throw out this player, throw out the coach. I've seen it happen in a couple of teams. Fnatic it has happened from time to time as well. But it's not necessarily a helpful statement a lot of times, especially when fans can't know the full of what's going on behind the scene. Like teams like Los Ratones, who are very open, even they aren't sharing everything. And that means that you're never going to get a full picture of what's going on.
Makes a lot of sense. You also had their game against Giant X, which they wanted to stream their scrims, but they weren't able to.
Yes.
I think maybe the LEC didn't want it because there's big possibilities of if Giant X actually lose there, does it make the LEC look bad?
I think it's more like
it was
because
a rule,
of course at this point
there was a rule against using LEC and content. There was no right approval for the stream, so they had to shut it down.
Yeah, I mean that's the nature of, again, that franchise league. But with that, I think our communications, our discussions regarding the current state of First Standard at least, and World League, as we ended up sort of expanding into, has somewhat rounded through. So I think let's round off the rundown for this First Stand episode with the shoutouts to these boys. Cameras.
Whoa.
Thank you for being on, guys. Obviously, you can see names and Twitter handles are present, but Harold, where else can we find you?
That's about it. But I do cast the UKL, and
we're all present on the Four Nations.
Yes, on the UKL Four Nations presented by the UKL. Sorry, Tom Temporal, don't kill me.
Tom, it's him right here. This one right here, officer.
But yeah, I sometimes am there, being more usually composed than this, and way more controlled, at least when I'm on desk. When I'm on cast, I'm on hinge, but yeah. And every Friday I have my own podcast about Balance League, a little amateur league.
A little bit of that amateur League of Legends, we love it.
Yeah. We run every Friday 9:30 p.m. on 9:30 p.m. CET on my
European,
channel.
yeah.
So VL After Dark. We drink and we talk shit about people.
Good stuff. Zath, bit of the old YouTube wonderkins over there.
Yeah, hi. I've known Brackish for a while. It's been a decent bit of time. You know, I've done casting together a few times.
We have
UKL Four Nations, whatever Harold said. I haven't been on there this season, but probably should be catching up. If you are curious about me, Zathdos down below. Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, literally anything. It's just that. But yeah, that's it for me.
And I mean, you're here, so you probably roughly, vaguely know who I am. If not, hi, Brackish Brit. Yeah, I'm here doing this. I'm here doing the Four Nations League of Legends. Cat! And we also have the occasional streams, usually Tuesdays, Fridays, 8 p.m. British time. Yeah, had those numbers there. And I will be around as we proceed.
Best camera you could ever have.
I mean, yeah, if you want to keep it there, and we just.
Oh no, it's not about me anymore. It's about the cat.
Can we change the name on the camera to Zathdos?
The cat is down. Possibly, but what we will actually do is we will toss for the time being. Thank you very much for being for this one, guys. We will see you next time around on the rundown.